actionable insights and practical strategies that you can apply to your own products. Throughout the session, we encourage you to engage with us by asking questions and sharing your thoughts. This is a fantastic opportunity to learn from each other and gain new insights that can help drive your SaaS initiatives forward. So, with that, Kaushik, what's up?
Hi.
Talk about UX for SaaS.
Yeah. This is a very important topic that we will
Mhm.
be discussing. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to know what sort of questions everyone has for this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it. So here's uh, the first question, right? So, like at a fundamental level, how do you think about design when you are so there are a lot of SaaS products which are built for an audience group that can range in there, and this is one of the first challenges that we had at ClientJoy as well, because since ClientJoy is a CRM for freelancers and agencies, we could essentially have like a creative designer from New York who's 20 years old to let's say a finance and tax consultant in Vietnam who's like 55 years old. And so the range of the age of the people, their background, their walk of life, like all of these things are so different from each other. How to think about UX and its design elements such that it sort of works largely for this broad range.
Hmm. So every SaaS product, I think the best way to think about it is we all know that there is our SaaS product is a tool, and this tool could be used differently by different cohort of people. And so there are two aspects of it that we could see. One is the basic set of understanding of UX. Then there is product specific set, that is where the cohort comes in. To give you a little example, there's always a beginner user, there's always an advanced level user with
Yeah.
respect to your tool. And I think personalization at the stage of onboarding, personalization at the stage of, with respect to individual module would help a lot with respect to how that particular user can use that particular product. For example, let's say we have let's say you are an editor, and you are using templates to that you're creating and you're just downloading. You might be using it for your personal purpose, or you could be using it for your business purpose,
Yeah.
right? That's where you could see recently Canva has created this whole entire Canva for business suite,
Yeah.
where they know that they personalize that in a such a way that there is a quite a cohort of audience agencies that are using our platform for business use, and there is a set of audience who are using it for normal use. So if you get into their application, the template section still looks the same, but if you look into the they have created a separate module called as business kit, where they have again created templates categorized based on businesses, departments and teams
Yeah.
inside businesses, right? So this is the personalization that I'm talking about. So you make sure that what the user wants, or how the cohort wants to use, and convert them into modules, and then convert them into features or the flow. That is a much more smarter way of dealing with this always.
Hmm. Interesting. And by the way, we didn't address the I should not say like elephant that's not in the room. So he's not an elephant by any stretch of the imagination, but like
Huh.
uh, I I forgot when we started because I think the live with this new software works a little differently.
Yeah.
But we're four people. We don't have one co-founder with us today. He's on his way back from the
From
States. If you remember, he was in US last week, and right now he's in flight, and so that's why he couldn't join us at this time. But Jai, any questions
Yeah,
from your side?
yeah, sure. So, Kaushik, I understand that a lot of things are being taken care, but at times there's this when it comes to UI UX designer, it's more about creativity that always comes up, right? And at times, the user base in itself requires some form of simplicity based on the if the target audience is of that particular age. How does one effectively balance that gap between simplicity and like as well as having more creative design and who also and also
Uh,
while making sure that all the functionalities are utilized well enough inside the platform.
so there is this very interesting quote that I know. I'll start with that. It's called, I forgot who mentioned it, but it's called charge twice for simple. So you know, yeah,
If you by the way, if you forget who said this, it's always unknown Chinese proverb. That always works. But this is interesting. Charge twice for simple, is it? Nice. That's
yeah,
good to know.
because it's always there's something that I that at least we try very hard with our projects and with our design team here is that strive for simplicity. There's nothing easier and better than that, but doing that is always tougher for a designer. Now, what is defining simplicity becomes an interesting challenge here. So. Uh, from UX perspective, the simplicity is all about making sure that the user, when he wants to use the platform in a particular way, the platform should function as a tool in that particular way. That's the whole point of this intuitive UX. So it should be intuitive for the user to experience the tool or the platform. That's the whole idea. Now, how do you do it? Like so. Now that's a very intuitive UX is a much more simpler UX, right? So uh, I have a form that where I have to fill in the details of my address. But if there is a button that auto detects my location and just helps me, skip all through that stages, that is the intuitive part that comes in, right? It's automatically trying to help me or aid me. Now I can give you this. There are multiple ways of thinking about it. Let's say there are a list of items in a which is very common in SaaS, all right? So there's always a list of items, and let's say I have to add a button of add a new item, right? So UX designers, especially, always have the urge to place the button wherever the space is available,
Yeah,
right? So and there is also there are two limits of it. Either they have the urge to place it wherever the space is available, or they always have the urge to place it inside something else,
Yeah.
so, that is not related to it or something.
Yeah.
But but if you think from what would the users I would look for, or I would be searching for, I have a list of items, and when the list of items ends, right, that's where the portion where he's probably looking for, right? If you place the add button over there, that's an action. So you are basically intuitively telling them that okay, fine, you have looked out, I have scanned all the list of items. Now this is the end. But if you want to take an action upon this end, there is a button there or anything like that. So this flips the tiny change,
Yeah.
of thinking from users perspective to not thinking from users perspective, and designing intuitively and not designing intuitively. So at the end of the day, intuitive is simplicity. So, and at the end of the day,
I
that's what matters.
I actually have an example of an unintuitive design that is almost frustrating. I tweeted about it a while back,
Yeah,
which
you
is
mentioned
it's
it.
basically Google. So we use Google Workspace at Momentum 91, and I was trying to make a payment, and so it took me to Google Billing, and then Billing took me to some third party, I think BillDesk, some third party platform that they were using to integrate all the banks and everything. And then in the drop down of banks, now India has like 300, 400 banks that support online payments, and the drop down of banks had list of all the banks that were not sorted alphabetically, right?
Hmm.
So no popular banks, no alphabetical sort, no nothing like that. It didn't even remember that the last payment that I made was using that bank. Now, as an
Bank.
organization, you don't switch banks often. So like that's so unintuitive that it would have been like 15 more seconds, right? So if it had alphabetical sort, I would have saved only 15 seconds. It's not a huge impact on the amount of time, but the amount of frustration that I felt just looking for my bank in the list of 300 unsorted names of banks, that is like it is extremely, and I don't know why anyone would do this. But that sort of brings me to my next question, right? So a good decent design, let's say you have a good decent design, something that looks nice. How do you, like, what are the key metrics that you measure to figure out whether this is this good enough, right? So most more often than not, every design optimization that we've spoken about, unless they're marketing design optimization, you can have conversion rates and stuff like that. But almost every other design discussion that we have about the products, as an example, should there be a sidebar or a header, and stuff like that. So almost all of that are just arguments using words and not numbers. What key metrics that you measure or that you look for to figure out whether this is an optimized design, or does this need more work?
So there are multiple ways. So we are talking about a stage where that particular design is out, and how do we measure that particular design has reached to the
Yeah,
point
yeah.
what we expected to happen. So definitely the heat map of the screen, as well as the dead clicks and the clicks that happen within the screen. Those are very helpful and very important. But apart from that, there is another very much more straightforward, interesting technique that's very commonly used. I think it's tossed by Jacob Delson, one of the famous OGs in UX field, where which very often they do in their organization, is called as thinking aloud technique. So which is a form of user testing method. What they do is you basically hand over the product to the user, and then you let the user use it, and you ask the user to talk about it while using it, and then you just calmly take notes out of it. So
Interesting.
this is a very interesting technique, because it is the most raw form of taking the data. So you're basically, let's say, for example, let's say you have an onboarding journey, right? That is and you have created it in a particular way and planned it in a particular way, and then your user is actually using it and is going through it. Then let's say when he has a frustration, he will spell it out, and whenever he's happy about something, he would be like, oh, it's great, it's working. So it's faster. They would give some adjective or some word to you while they're using it, and these are key
Yeah.
pointers that for us to take notes of. And you would be very surprised how there are a lot of platforms where user would be using it, and then there would be also users who would be happy about that particular flow. There would also be users who wouldn't be happy about that particular flow always.
Hmm.
So you can't have a unanimous sample with you, which you can take decision upon. But there's always this interesting point, that which user should you listen to. So that's
Yeah.
when you,
Yeah.
when you create a cohort of each set, and then try to understand which is the most which set made more sense out of it, and which data. It's basically collecting the data, then categorizing the data, then analyzing it in such a way that it makes sense with respect to the platform. There is one
That
very
was my
interesting.
next question, Kaushik. You like who do you listen to was what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but please
Same.
continue.
There is this very interesting example of LinkedIn. So when LinkedIn was in its development stage, there was a very interesting data at a point that a lot of LinkedIn users wanted to make sure that everyone should be able to reach out to everyone.
Hmm.
So, like for example, if I'm there, if I want to reach out to send a message to Bill Gates, I should be able to. So that's what a group of LinkedIn users felt
Yeah.
like, right?
Yeah.
And but they are very passionate users of LinkedIn, and that's what made them, think in this direction.
Yeah.
But obviously, practically, that's not possible, and that's not something
Or
LinkedIn
else you'll
can do
become
also.
Twitter, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. So, so yeah. So now LinkedIn didn't go forward with it. In fact, LinkedIn had a name for those users. They called them lions, and they just kept them in one cohort. And there were a lot of other pointers that those user set mentioned that was used later in LinkedIn, but not obviously that all the pointers are needed to be taken directly. In fact, that is an interesting exercise. So let's say you have done it for the first time, the second time, and the third time. You will obviously recognize a cohort of people who are giving you suggestions, and you will realize that in user testing, the cohort that gave you bad suggestions the previous time, might give you a much better suggestion in a different module for a different thing, because they are using it differently. So that so it's important to categorize the cohort, as well as then see how this individual cohort is responding and using the platform in different models. Like a beginner user traditionally always suffers in modules within SaaS, like integrations, payments, and with respect to settings and these aspects, right? A very beginner level person. So but a more advanced user wouldn't have a problem understanding them. So these things will keep coming around, and yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this gets me to one question, Kaushik, something related to user activation, wherein I mean, even coming before that, what I would like to know is, do you have any specific tips for onboarding process, because there has been a lot of discussion going on around onboarding process and with respect to, I mean, how that could help user quickly understand and derive value from the product. So a lot of discussion goes ahead with respect to what sort of things you should have in onboarding, whether you should have it, whether you should ask a lot of questions at this time, or you should just share information at this point, collected some information. So, is there any fair practice or tips that you would like to share when someone is designing onboarding process for this as for the first time?
Yeah, so I think we traditionally see a lot of onboardings that is a little preachy, right? Like, for example, they preach how to use the platform. I think that is something that is dying out in the current times, and that's we have traditionally. I mean, we're very frequently seeing that it's not working as we planned. One better way to do it is you rather make the user do at least one task, that is one of the major tasks of the platform,
Mm-hmm.
while you are in onboarding. I think one platform that does it amazingly is Asana. If you are trying to onboard into Asana through your mobile, in web also I think they have it. So in mobile, what they have done is I'll give you a comparison also with respect to it. So in mobile, what they have done is they will make you to create a task and assign that task. That's the onboarding. So a series of questions, a series of things that will make you to create a task, tag a task, and assign a task. So they do all these things, and then your first task is created. So this is one form of onboarding, right? So the user understands that this is the primary thing that I have to do in this platform, and I understand the value of what it is. So it's direct to the point. Whereas in platforms like Figma, you would notice that it collects details. Always in onboarding, there is one big confusion that you have of how much should you collect, how much should you make them do. So it's better if you reduce the amount of information that you collect, and even if it's the information that you're collecting, it should be something that you tap or click, not something that you enter manually, like and you enter an entire brief about it, or you enter some information into it. No avoid form inputs, rather focus on having form controls that are more buttons, segmented buttons, drop downs, or something along those lines. Whereas focus more on making the user do the primary task of that particular SaaS product. uh, One key task of it, part of the onboarding process itself. Like in one of our recent projects, we have, which is an editor, design editor. What we try to do is we ask them a couple of questions in the onboarding process. Actually, we just ask them only one question. The other one is just email, and we
Yeah.
just ask them one question where which industry they belong to, and then as soon as that, we show them a mod. There's a model which comes up with a few set of templates and a template chosen, and their name and their business name automatically in the bottom banner. All these things come automatically. All they have to do is choose a template, and
Yeah.
as they choose a template, the template changes, but the banner remains the same,
Remains the same.
and then download. So by this they understand the fact, because in this platform, the editor, the template section, and making the user get into the templates is as important, was as important as the editor. So we made the templates a part of the onboarding, because editor is something that they can figure out even after coming into the platform. So make the user do the task. That's a better onboarding technique.
That's an interest. I mean, that surely having one main task getting done in onboarding
Yeah,
itself will definitely reduce the activation time for sure because they find the value right in itself through the onboarding.
yeah, yeah.
This leads me to another question with respect to retention on how effective is an intuitive UX with respect to retention, and if there are any trending strategies that you could share with respect to how one can utilize the UX for bringing on retention.
It is everything, basically. So I think after you get into the platform, like 70% of the time, I feel like if you just avoid bad UX, you are good UX. So like I can give you a very simple example. There are a lot of things. One or a couple of things I can tell you. One is that uh, there's always a one unit item with respect to every SaaS product. So, and that particular unit item needs to have its actions immediately associated with it. We often call it CRUD, right? So, ability to create, read, update, and delete a particular item. That should be that being available next to it. This is the things that I'm going to tell will sound obvious, but you'll be surprised how often people miss it or skip it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
So like it's as obvious as you should brush twice a day. Very
yeah.
obvious advice. Every dentist says that it's always recommended, but people
Yeah,
skip that, right?
people
So
skip that exactly.
yeah,
So and also having you need to have your module, the categorization of your modules more visible within your dashboard. Your dashboard, the items within your dashboard should be having the task of what the activity that I've done with respect to the application needs to be reflected in the dashboard. You'll see a lot of platforms like coming back to a similar example. We have when we did a competitive analysis for the editor platform, we realized that a lot of the platform's homepage is their templates page. Then we were like, so what happens to the file that I just edited? Where
yeah.
does
So
it
like
go?
their onboarding starts before sign up, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So items like so things like this would come in, and also there's also another part that comes with respect to what happens when the user does a mistake, right? How are you nudging the user? So are you just showing a bland error message, or are you along with the error message, are you nudging them towards the right direction of how to do that task? So that also becomes a part, right? Because obviously user is going to do an error at some or the other point. So how are you going to nudge them? So it's always about there's a information you are trying to show them as show that information, arrange the information within the screen in such a way that you prioritize some or the other. Then second thing comes about how you are nudging people with respect to that information such that it becomes actionable information. I have a file. I need to make sure that all the controls that I do with the file, share, create, read, update, delete, move, all these aspects I should be able to do it from that particular item itself. I don't have to go to settings to do sharing of my file that is in the dashboard. That shouldn't be the case. So these are the different aspects. We can go all day about it, but just I think best way to think about it is think how your user would directly use it or think about it. There is this thing called as builder's mind versus beginner's mind. As a let's say you have created a presentation, right? So you would have put all the data, all the text, all the everything about the particular presentation, and you would be presenting it to the people, and no one would be interested in the thing that you have kept inside. Rather, they want to know the what is the outcome or the point behind that presentation. So that is because the user wants only one thing, that is the immediate action. And if you don't nudge it with respect to the particular item or the within your platform, then you are doing something wrong. Yeah.
Got it. And so like in your experience, I mean, design tools, Figma, Canva, Illustrator, all of these are fairly well known. Um, but from design performance management standpoint, what are some of the tools that you'd recommend um, founders to um, founders or product managers or product owners to start looking at, start implementing, and then checking out? So I think you earlier mentioned heat maps. So if you could share a couple of tools over there, if you could share a couple of tools around product data management or something like that, that will be helpful.
Uh, we use Notion practically for the management of all the data. So I could divide it into two, three parts. One is before the project starts, while you're doing the project, after the project. So before your project starts, Notion is amazing. You can use Notion to manage practically everything and anything, just because of the very better community that it has. While you're doing the project, obviously Figma, and for managing your entire project, I often use this product called Superlist. It also has a plugin within
Mm-hmm.
Figma, so I can assign within Figma to others. I can also create a checklist of tasks to do or checklist of screens to do, and my screens becomes a checklist, so I know which to finish when. So that's also a great platform. Uh, with respect to the after analysis aspects, we have Aptitude, where
Mm-hmm.
which we use. Then, for if you're doing web design, then Hotjar,
Yeah.
Microsoft Clarity also for the product. So all these
Yeah.
aspects are all these things are quite good. But one thing is that choose the right thing to measure. That is more important. The platforms do offer a variety of options
Mm-hmm.
to how to do that, but choosing which one to measure is much more important. I feel like if you're doing web design, you are doing your entire marketing. You're spending your entire marketing budget to get people to your website.
Yeah.
So in that funnel, just see how are people getting converted. If they are not getting converted, where are they not getting converted, and see
Mm.
where all the dead clicks are happening within your website design. If it's a platform, let's say you have where all are your important features placed inside, are people able to find them in the way you intended them to be. So that's where the recordings come in hand, and you check that particular flows recording. These you can use and then take notes and reuse them. So one important thing that we see is we do all this, but we never take action upon them, which is the biggest thing. So that's again an important thing. If you a simple A/B testing of the product, A/B testing of the website also would help you to understand the fact that this is working
Yeah.
and this is not working. So that is something which we these are certain. I mean, few things that you could do. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Interesting. So like amplitude, clarity, all of these tools can help us figure out whether a design is performant or not. And so that's good to know. The other thing that I also want to understand from SaaS design or SaaS UX standpoint. So does does the intuitiveness of a design begin? Is it more of a UI thing or a UX thing, or like like uh, who is the person who makes sure that the design is as intuitive as possible? Is it the UX person or the UI person?
It's a UX person. The UI, well, here's one thing. UI is part of UX itself. It's not a separate domain.
Okay.
I mean, it's coined separately, but for example, my buttons need to look clickable, and
Yeah.
which is the UX aspect, for which I size my button to 44 or 40 pixel. That is the UI aspect.
Yeah.
So that's the connection between both.
Got it.
So and that also answers the question, right? So which
Yeah.
means that user clicks it.
The
So it
button
has
has to be clickable. So that's
yeah. So I would say that the thought of how the user would click comes first, then where he would want to find it comes next, and can he click it? Is it in such a position where is it clickable? Where that's where the
mm,
UI comes first. So that's the chain of thought with respect to this.
got it. I think so.
Yeah.
That brings us towards the end of the conversation today. But I have one last question,
Yeah.
which I found very recently asked somewhere in some forum. Um, and this question is going to decide whether you are a good designer or not, right? So like the answer to this question, because this is like
Huh.
it's extremely important. So um, a straw, right? A
Hmm.
straw. Does a straw have one hole or two holes?
It's one.
Well, it's two, no?
It's what matters. The whole continuous thing, no. If let's say I have a paper and I made two holes in a paper,
Hmm.
it's two holes.
Correct.
If I
So if
bend
I
the
have,
same paper,
so as an example, if I have this bottle, if
huh,
I make one hole here,
huh,
does this have one hole or two holes?
it has one single hole because it's connected, right? So is a black hole one hole or two holes?
I don't know. I don't know. I am the person asking questions.
So a black hole is identified as a single hole, right? But it
Correct.
has an entry as well as an exit.
There's no exit.
There is an
No,
exit.
nothing can exit.
I mean, the
Anything
concept,
falls
the
in.
concept, yeah, falls in. There is a outer point to it, like
No, no, all
in
of that is
physics.
science fiction. We don't know that yet. We don't know that yet.
No, no, no.
It's
Black hole and wormhole concept. There is a like physical explanation that I mean physics-wise explanation that there is an exit point also to it. Then, so it's a one hole. The point is the one.
okay. It's one
What?
hole. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
Got it. Yeah,
But
perfect.
was there a right
You
answer?
qualify. No,
Oh,
that's correct.
okay. Ouch,
That's correct.
okay.
That's why I was pushing back. No, if you'd
Uh,
given the wrong answer, I would have already said that. Oh my God, Kaushik, you're not a good designer.
okay,
I was
fine, fine.
expecting you to say two hole,
Uh,
but that's fine.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining in.
Hmm.
I hope this was a helpful and a meaningful conversation around doing intuitive UX for your SaaS product. And we'll see you again next week with a topic where we'll discuss something around growth and go to market. And thanks again for joining in. Until next time. Bye bye.
Bye.
Right.